Hey, this is Fam Electric Ghost, and I'm playing your song Cheap Beer and Nicotine in the back.
All right, awesome.
I've been jamming to it for the last couple of minutes. I got a couple of questions that I'm going to bring to you. But
Awesome.
yeah, so just give everybody the preface. This is Fam Electric Ghost. I interview indie bands and actors from all around the world. Been doing it for about 2 years. And tonight we've got LittleDEATH on, and we've got, Thomas Glantz? That's your name?
That's me.
So how many members are in the band?
We are a three-piece.
Three-piece. Okay. So what's your role?
I play guitar and push buttons. I'm kind of the guy that does a lot of the kind of keyboard stuff, but I'm mostly the guitarist.
Okay, I'm a keyboardist, so I'm big. I'll probably ask you some questions.
Cool.
So I've been jamming to your single. I love the original version. I've been listening to the remix, but I actually like your original.
Awesome. Thank you.
And yeah, and I was just looking at it, and I grabbed a couple lines out of it. Like you say, there's a line like "Wanna be Springsteen," so I'm a big Springsteen fan. So I'm gonna ask you a little bit about that. And
Awesome.
then like late nights, fast cars, sketchy girls, all good stuff.
Yeah, good times.
And the gutter barely breathing. So it's kind of got, I'm a big fan of like classic rock and really good music composition. And what I like the fact is that you kind of got this, Springsteen reference. So I would assume there's a lot of layering in your song because it's kind of a little bit like a Born to Run in its approach in terms of the layering. So it's a little bit like Spectre in that kind of structure. And then
Yeah,
I appreciate that you have all of this, layered, overdubbed guitars and synths and really cool things. And a little bit of some hip hop elements and
definitely.
samples. It's cool. It's good because there's a lot of things out there today, and I see some of your reference points. You name check Springsteen, so that's cool. So I wanted to maybe go through the main questions of like when did your band get started, and what age did you get into music? So maybe we'll start there. So what is the foundation of your band? How long have you been around?
So this is our first release as LittleDEATH. We started writing together about a year and some change ago, but we only announced the band in November. So we've only been like publicly out there for a little over a month. We all started playing in bands around the same time, just different bands. We never played together, and we would play shows together. And like me and our bassist Ford, like our bands at the time had us.
That I like the original version. I've been listening to the remix, but I really like the original. And yeah, I like how you name check Springsteen. You want to be Springsteen, and it has the composition I was talking about had like layering similar to like Born to Run, and you have a little bit of hip hop, you have guitar, you have keyboards, you have really interesting lines, late nights, fast cars, sketchy girls, stuff like that. So you were talking about how the genesis of your band, how long you've been together, and what this is like your first single from this project, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it's only been about a month and a half with us in the kind of the public eye, even though we've been writing together for about a year and a half. When we started this project, we had no idea what we were going to sound like. We just knew we were all kind of on the same page with life and
Yeah. You get closer to your phone, you dropped off a little bit.
oh,
Yeah.
is that better?
Yeah, it's better. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, man. Did you want me to repeat that?
Yeah, repeat what you said, kid. You dropped off. Or maybe you got a little too far from the phone. I caught it.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Yeah, so we've only been in the public eye for about a year and a half now. Um, I mean, God, we've been writing together for a year and a half, but we've only been in the public eye for about a month when we dropped our song November 12th.
Mm-hmm.
And when we first started writing together about a year and a half ago, we had no idea like what we were going to sound like. We knew we were all into these bands, and we were kind of on the same page with music and what we wanted to get out of it. So it was really exciting just to get together as friends and experiment until we found something that clicked.
So when you talk about the music you're into, can you give us some reference points into what type of music, what bands you listen to that you're inspired by?
Absolutely. Yeah, so for me personally, right now I'm a big fan of indie pop bands. The 1975 is probably
Yeah.
one of my biggest influences personally as a guitarist and like in my like pop sensibility.
Hmm.
And I'm also big fans of like early 2000s rock and roll bands like Jimmy Eat World and 90s grunge and
Hmm.
R.
Hi. Sorry.
Right.
Make sure you don't hit that little red X, because sometimes people, if they're talking, they accidentally hit the X that says finish recording. But
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you banged into it, maybe, but that could have done it. But just be
Gotcha.
mindful of that.
I
Um,
got my I got my phone screen unlocked, so hopefully it won't happen.
yeah, yeah. So cool. We have segments so we can carry from the last segment. We'll put it together. So I know you were talking about how long you've been with the band. You're with, just for like a year and a half or so, and this is your first single, the Cheap Beer and Nicotine. And you were talking about your influences. You talked about the 1975. So let me get back to that and maybe get into it. You talk about grunge too. So maybe on grunge bands, everybody knows Nirvana with the Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, and Stone Temple Pilots, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of late 90s, early 2000s radio rock and pop has
Hmm.
definitely been a big influence for us. Um, and then 80s pop and classic rock. Definitely, especially our lead vocalist is a big fan of artists like Springsteen.
Hmm.
Uh, Definitely. And our influences go anywhere from folk music to modern hip hop and even like SoundCloud rap. We pretty much just kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
we just take
Muffled.
everything in and figure
Yeah.
out how we can apply that to our music in a way that feels genuine.
What's cool, let me get through the questions. Like, so when did you first get into music? At like what age?
I started playing guitar when I was 15, and so I got my first electric guitar for my birthday when I was 15, and then by my 16th birthday, I was playing my first show with some friends, um, and it's just kind
Wow.
of
So,
it's on from there.
so what kind of guitar do you like to play on? Les Paul or Fender? Or
I
what type
played
of guitar?
I played pretty much Gibson Les Paul for a very long time. Recently, as I transitioned into sort of this indie pop world, I discovered how great Telecasters are, and
Yeah.
so I own about five Fender guitars now. I have a I
Hmm.
have a Telecaster, I have a thin line with P90s. I got a Mustang
Hmm.
Jazzmaster. So
Now, the one thing I noticed when I talk to people, like they say Les Pauls are very forgiving when you play, but a Fender, you have to be more accurate in your note choices of how you play it, because everything kind of is heard. And so, does it make you have to play tighter when you play the Fender?
yeah, I could see that for sure. There's a certain clarity that that like the Telecaster and Jazzmaster pickups have that something with humbuckers like a Les Paul or SG doesn't have. It's very bright and chimey, and you can definitely hear every little movement on the fretboard and on the strings. So
Mm-hmm. It's probably
that
like
might be
punk bands like Les Paul's more, because like they're maybe not going to do, like if a band like Husker Du or like
yeah,
the Replacements, or somebody's playing kind of classic punk like the Ramones or something, probably going to use less. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm not sure. Normally, like if sometimes if you're not actually on the app itself, like I'm not sure if you actually got onto the app and created a user and then hit the favorite button, because then that makes a tighter connection.
Oh,
Um,
gotcha. No, I did not do that.
yeah, so if you're doing it outside the app, sometimes it's not as stable. Most of the time it
Gotcha.
does. I mean, I've actually interviewed people where it has been stable, but you might, if it goes down again, you might want to go in and do find me, Family Look at Ghost, hit the star button, the little star button, favorite me, and then if I call you that way, it might be more stable.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, but we'll keep on doing it. If it drops again, do
All
that.
right, sounds good.
So all these will be linked together, so don't worry about it. But if it does drop,
Awesome.
Um,
I trust you.
yeah. So yeah. So we were talking about your reference points. You had mentioned like the 1975 and 90s pop, and yeah, this 1975. I can hear some of the reference points in the way you guys are writing, and then the
Awesome.
Springsteen. In terms of like your lyrical content, it's a little deeper than some of the bands you hear today, because
Thank
I
you.
think maybe because of your influences, like especially Springsteen. Springsteen kind of forces you to write kind of like a Dylan, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, you have to think about what your song craft, you're trying to tell a story, and I kind of pick up in your song, "Cheap Beer and Nicotine." You're talking about this person's kind of like they're a little affected by, like, I don't know if you know sociology idea, like anomie. They're kind of disassociated. They're kind of living on the edge, and they're kind of falling apart a little bit. Like, you know what I mean?
that's exactly what the song is about.
Yeah, and I like the lines like late night, fast cars, sketchy girls, and then wanna be Springsteen in the gutter, barely breathing. I mean, in some ways it's kind of a little Lou Reed, because I'm a big fan of the Velvet Underground.
Okay.
And if you I don't know if you ever got into the Velvets, but they're
Yeah.
one of the first bands to kind of talk about low living, or the kind of things that happen in the gutter, and kind of bringing that out in a pop song, where normally pop songs don't talk about stuff like that. And Lou Reed
Yeah.
was a big proponent of bringing that kind of stuff to light and put it into a pop structure. And so Walk on the Wild Side and all these other songs he did used to have this kind of connotations, like Wait for the Man, those type of songs. So yeah, I kind of see where you guys are going, and I like it.
Thank you very much.
So do you guys like live record in a studio? Do you use a digital audio workstation? How do you record?
So our producer uses Pro Tools,
Okay.
and so kind of our process is I'll start the song in Logic Pro at my house, um, and we'll bang out a rough demo there, and then we'll bring it into the studio.
Hey,
Oh,
Thomas.
I started it, so hopefully this works.
Yeah, well, string that. Hopefully this will be the tighter connection, unless there's actually a bug happening. I've done a bunch of interviews this week, so there could be some kind of issue with the app. Hopefully there's not.
Okay,
But we've been doing it for a while, so hopefully this won't be a problem. But this is not live. I do edit these and put them out before they go out.
awesome.
So yeah, you were talking about where we were on your recording, and you say you actually do what, Logic, and then your producer uses Pro Tools.
Yep. Our producer uses Logic as well, but his primary DAW is definitely Pro Tools. We just kind of like create some synth sounds within Logic.
Mm-hmm. So you use MIDI synths, not like, because I'm a big like synth player. I play like Moogs and Rolands, like actual synths.
Oh, that's
So
awesome. No, yeah, unfortunately we just are sticking to MIDI right now.
yeah, well, your primary is your guitar player, so to bring the synths in, if you're not a keyboardist, you might not have a Moog, you might not have like a Hammond or anything like that. So you
Yeah,
probably, because that's not your primary. But yeah, I understand people getting into synths that way. It's a good way to do it. There's all kinds of cool plugins. You can do a lot of cool stuff. But I'm a big analog guy, so
that's awesome.
I love Moogs, I love Prophets, I love Euro Racks. That's what I do. But
Very cool.
so would you guys primarily write on your guitars, or you write on piano? How do you write songs?
So the song generally starts with Riley, our vocalist. He'll start writing it with an acoustic guitar, and he'll usually just send me a voice memo of the acoustic guitar and him singing over. We go from there. It's a
Uh,
very like folksy grassroots kind of style of writing.
yeah, old school. I used to have a Tascam 4-tracker. Showing my age, I'm like in my 50s. But when I used to record, I had a actual analog tape 4-track Tascam.
That's awesome.
And I used to put stuff down on that. And then I had, back in the day, I had a Roland D50, which is a really kind of awesome synth, but kind of like Roland's version of a DX7, if you know what a DX7 is.
Yeah, very
Um,
cool.
yeah, and the D50 had capabilities the DX7 didn't have. And so it was pretty cool. And I would just bring it into a Tascam. But it's interesting that today you guys, what would have been done on a reel-to-reel or a Tascam back in the day, you guys are doing with like, voice memos, which is totally cool. It's a different thing. I wouldn't, I can imagine it now because I record now, but back in the day, like it's a lot different than what people used to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you guys ever use like things like GarageBand, or you stick with your other? Okay, let's see.
This is wild.
Yeah, well, it's not glitched like this. Before I had an old app I used to do this on called Spearman, and then they stopped doing this, and then Anchor took over. I've never had it this unstable. I don't know if it's because of year end and they're doing something with the app tonight, which you never know. They should
Yeah.
they should have told me, because they have all these podcasters. We're doing active podcasts for the year, end of the year. I got one tomorrow and the next day. So it's not cool if it's acting like this right now.
Yeah.
But like I said, the segments can be strung together, and I can actually edit them and trim them and stuff. So let's get back to what we're doing. I hope it doesn't drop again. Yeah, you were talking about how you work in the studio, and maybe keep on going from there.
Okay, yeah. So we spoke about using the voice memos as a jumping point, and then I'll usually begin the demos within Logic Pro, and that's pretty much where everything is done within. And
Mm.
then when we're finished with that, we take the stems and we bring them to our producer, and he'll load them into Pro Tools, and then we'll start deconstructing the song from there.
So do you actually do any overdubs in a studio, or you do everything like where you don't physically have to be in the studio? You can just send files like stems and stuff, or do you physically punch in to the DAW and actually overdub or change things?
Oh yeah, no, we usually don't keep most of the stems that we record at my place on Logic. It's
Mm.
just kind of like a pre-production jumping off point.
Okay. So do you actually go and just re-record everything? Or how do you do that? I'm just trying to get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So our producer has a much better control of the sound and the environment, and he's got great mics and everything. So we'll just sort of once we do a lot of pre-production with him and
Okay.
kind of rebuild the songs
Maybe
and
get
figure
closer to your phone. You're dropping off a little bit. Yeah, there
Okay.
you go.
So we do a lot of pre-production with him, which has been really great. He's a very hands-on guy, but he doesn't take over. He just kind of helps us push ourselves. And so yeah, we usually end up re-recording just about everything. He's got a lot of really cool synths that I don't have, as far as like plugins go and VSTs and everything. So he's kind of a madman with that kind of stuff. He's really, really good.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do with the the digital audio workstation. I've been kind of going a little backwards in my production, as I'm going back to like analog mixers, because I've got analog synths, and so
Okay,
when you have analog synths, you kind of want to record them with analog equipment, and then
absolutely.
kind of put I do some things, but I mean I might get a Tascam 24, which allows you to do analog mixing, and then bring in like Euroracks and modes and different things as analog instruments, and then record them to a digital tape at that time, and then mix them there. But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff going on today with the DAWs that you can construct. I actually did an album with a woman in Los Angeles using FL Studio, and I'm in New Hampshire.
That's really cool.
So we did the whole thing, just sending stems back and forth and recording in our own DAWs and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do that way. I did another one with a band in New York City called Lonnie Claire, and we were just collabing that way. And it's just interesting what you can do. I've heard people working with people all over the world. Guys in
Yeah.
Australia and Japan getting a stem from some like electronic musician in Tokyo, and then playing with it and manipulating, going back and forth. So the collaboration today is like not just limited to like national borders or anything. You can just do anything you want. So
It's incredibly exciting.
are you guys scheduling shows as a Little Death?
We are planning to start playing shows early in the year, early in 2019. We just kind of got quite a bit to figure out since we are a three-piece. We don't have a dedicated drummer in the band, so we're gonna have to bring someone in and have them learn the parts and probably.
This is Fam Electric Ghost, and our supporter, CIN Pals, is having a promotional contest where you can win $500. You just have to call them at 786-562-7601. If you call them at 786-562-7601. You can also email CIN Pals at cinpalsinfo@gmail.com. cinpalsinfo@gmail.com. And their website is www.cinpals.com. Again, CIN Pals, a new type of social network, is having a promotional contest, and you can win $500. Check out CIN Pals at www.cinpals.com or call them at 786-562-7601. That's 786-562-7601. Email again is cinpalsinfo@gmail.com. cinpalsinfo@gmail.com. Thank you. Okay, so you were talking about potentially touring and you needed to get a drummer.
Yeah. So since we don't have we're going to be bringing someone in to play those parts live, and hopefully someone to play auxiliary guitar and keyboards. There's definitely, like you said earlier, there's a lot of layers in our music, and we don't want to. We want to backtrack as little as possible. We definitely want to bring just kind of like a rock and roll live experience.
Yeah, because that's one thing when I talk to like DJs, electronic musicians, a lot of their stuff is like coming right off of a Pioneer or coming off of a sequencer, and then they're not a lot of live playing,
Yeah.
And your band is more of a unit, like a traditional rock band, that you guys got to set up, you got to sound check that you're going to play live, which is what I do as well.
Yeah.
and it seems to be somewhat of a lost art when you get into some, like the hip hop and DJ world is kind of making it so you can go to a club with just your laptop and do a show and you're not really even playing.
Yeah.
And I, and not to say those guys aren't musicians, they do have musical capabilities, but there's still something about, I'm a guy that used to go see the Allman Brothers. I used to go see the Who, I see them for real. And so I'm kind of like, my measure of a band is like, looking at Greg Allman or looking at Pete Townsend. I mean, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. You want that experience. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a reason why musicians are musicians. And, I don't want to put down what the new music is, but I think you use those tools where you can. And I'm a one-man band, so I have stuff that I have to sequence. I have to use drum machines and stuff, but I play my Moogs live, and Robert Moog used to say, like, an analog synth like a Moog is meant to be played live.
Definitely.
Because there's something about it. It's organic. It's kind of like your guitars. The Moogs don't sound the same from day to day.
Yeah.
And so when you play, you have like a jazz man's perspective. And so I ask the questions, like, you guys like have a lot of different influences. Have you ever thought of collaborating cross genre into like with like rap or jazz or DJs? Have you thought about doing stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you saw, we released the remix of Cheap Beer Nicotine. That was done with a good friend of ours who's out in LA, who goes by the moniker Jamio, and he's a DJ out there. So that was super cool. We just sent him the vocals and let him kind of take his spin on the song. We recently recorded a stripped down version of the song, and we got a a female vocalist.
Awesome.
She kind of has like a country sort of twang to her voice. Really, really cool. So
So you're already doing what I'm saying. You're cross pollinating.
yeah, trying to.
Country, hip hop, DJ, electronic. That's cool. So you got a full record you're working on?
So that was the intention when we first started, but we sort of decided along the way that right now the way that people consume music is very sporadic. So
Yeah.
instead of releasing everything at once, we decided to start releasing singles on a somewhat monthly basis,
Yeah.
hopefully to keep the interest in entertainment and yeah.
That's a good strategy. I mean, myself, I've been releasing singles like all year, and then I finally broke down and created a collection. And what I found is vinyl is a good platform. And I actually go to New York City and play like in New York and stuff. So like I'm creating a limited edition vinyl of a lot of my songs that were on like Spotify for
Very
the
cool.
last year. And there's some companies out there to let you do that. Plug from one. I'm working with Digger's Factory, and they let you run like 200 copies, and then they let you build a project and get pre-orders, and you don't have to come up with any upfront money. And so then you can get your project on vinyl, and it's like a double vinyl, and it's gonna look pretty cool. But yeah, it seems like kids are more into buying it like that than on a CD.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would ever put it out on CD. The vinyl is a better bang for the buck. So it's just what I've seen lately is, at least in the Northeast, like in New York and stuff, if you show up to a club in Manhattan and you're an electronic act and you actually have vinyl, you'll sell that vinyl.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
vinyl it's definitely made a very strong comeback.
Yeah, it's just that because I think it's really good for bands that have ideas, because if you're a band that has like a concept and you do a record, when you do it as a vinyl, listen to the whole thing, because that's the way
Yes.
vinyl. So if you're a band that likes to do albums, vinyl is like a really good choice. I mean, if you're single oriented, that's fine, and I've done it myself. But if there's a lot of people who have ideas that are longer than a single, and the vinyl format kind of is in sync with the fans in that way, because they're not going to skip around the vinyl. They're
Yeah.
actually going to listen to the whole thing through. So I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure. As a listener, as someone who consumes music, my preferred way is to listen to an album all the way through from front to back. All my favorite records I can do that with, like Futures by Jimmy Eat World or Transatlanticism by Death Cab for Cutie. You put it on and you just play it until the last song.
Yeah, well, I'm old school. I mean, I used to listen to stuff like Electric Ladyland. You don't skip around Electric Ladyland from Hendrix.
Yeah.
You don't skip around like the Allman Brothers Eat a Peach. You listen to the whole thing. And so that's kind of where I came from. And like electronic music, yes, like Fragile, or listen to the Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, like Peter Gabriel Genesis. That's kind of where my head's at. So when I put together a project, I'm aiming for like Yes or Genesis, like a prog rock type of thing, where those are concept albums. Those are like rock operas, and so yeah, they're meant to be listened to like in one sitting. And I'm kind of old school that way, but
Yeah, we absolutely would love to do that. Once I think that's something we will be able to pursue once we have kind of solidified our fan base a little
yeah,
more.
yeah, definitely. The singles are the way to go. The Spotify and social media. Like, so you guys putting together like a video for YouTube? Have you thought about that?
So we're not going to have a video for the first single, Cheap Beer Nicotine, but there are plans in place to film a video for our second single, which will be coming in January.
So where would you put that? Would it go onto YouTube or some other
Oh yeah,
platform?
it would definitely be on YouTube.
That's cool. Yeah, it seems like the social media. There's a lot of artists, like you said, there's SoundCloud rappers. I'm a SoundCloud artist. People might not have heard of me, but I got like 81,000 listens on SoundCloud.
Right on.
So but that's where I got this. How I got this. This people approached me from these companies that do these podcasts, and they saw my fan base on SoundCloud, and that's how I got here. But that's where where you might not make it like in the traditional way, but SoundCloud, YouTube, Fanburst, there's all these different like streaming media services that are outside the normal record industry that are allowing like bands and the indie artists to get out there. And that's kind of what I'm doing here is I do a showcase to talk to indie bands in a way that MTV used to, you know.
Yeah.
I feel that bands need a way to talk without having to pay. That because I'm a music fan, I'm a musician, I want to talk to bands and give them a platform, and that's what this is about.
That's
So,
great.
so what are your thoughts on like streaming services versus like record labels and how people consume music? What are your thoughts, like positive and negative?
So I think there's a lot more pros to streaming than there are cons. I feel like now it's so easy for people to find bands that they've never heard of before. I feel like before the only way you'd find out about a new band is if your friend told you, or if you went to a show where you didn't know any of the artists on the bill. And now, like with Spotify, it recommends um, new music for you every week, which is, I don't know, super cool. I found out about so many bands from all over the world that I've never heard of that way, and I hope that people find out about our band that way too.
Well, Instagram is another way. What I found is Instagram is like the musicians' like social media. Like
Yes.
Instagram, actually, that's where I find all my guests. That's where a guest will usually what happens is I'm a musician. I have my stuff out there. Somebody will like one of my things. They happen to be a musician, and then I'll pitch them this show. So I say, hey, I'll interview your band, and that's how I usually
That's
because
awesome.
because Instagram is like where a lot of artists that are really alternative or indie. To me, it's kind of like back in the day, like you said, how did you find out about music? It was college radio. College radio used to be the only way you found out about new stuff. That's how I found about like REM, Who's to Do, The Replacements, all those bands kind of kicked off on college radio. But now college radio is probably not like what these things are. But
Yeah.
this is more like the college radio for this generation. The YouTubes and SoundClouds and all these streaming services like Spotify and Tidal and everything else. But yeah, I mean, it's strange that the college radio scene's not what it used to be. I don't know what
Yeah.
happened. I don't know if they got taken over by majors or whatever, but it doesn't seem to be a way for bands to kick there like they used to.
Yeah, definitely. We're all pretty big fans of Instagram. Even within like our personal lives, we all use it pretty heavily, and yeah, it's been an excellent way to expand our reach.
Yeah, especially now that you can do like 10-minute long videos, which I
Yeah.
don't know if people realize, but I use it a lot. But you can actually link your Spotify and your SoundCloud to Instagram and push like a video single or actual song, you know, out there as like a highlight. It lets you do that. And
That's
so,
so cool.
yeah, that's been very good for a lot of bands. I see a lot of bands starting to use it. And, because it's so music focused on Instagram. I mean, YouTube is too to a certain extent, but it's hard to get as many followers. Sometimes it's very difficult. Sometimes on YouTube to get your base there initially, it takes a
Yeah,
lot of work. But Instagram, you can build a base pretty quick.
definitely.
So I find that's I don't like to push one or the other, but some of them are harder than others.
Yeah, we've been really lucky with Instagram, and I think like in the year that we spent writing and recording the 6 or 7 songs that we have now, we all were kind of trying to figure out ways to sort of beat the algorithm with Instagram. Like, okay, what hashtags do we use to get the most likes on,
Yeah,
this video of us recording this bass guitar part or whatever. So
yeah.
that's been a lot of fun, a lot of trial and error.
Yeah, it's just really cool how we can get to connect to artists that it used to be you had to go to like a CBGB's like in New York City to figure out what's going on. You know,
Yeah,
in terms of the new music, and everybody still likes to go to that club, and that's a big place to go. Or like the Viper Room in LA, those are the kind of places you want to play. And still, a lot of indie acts want to hit those places.
oh, totally.
But it's just, I mean, I do Facebook Live shows from my home studio, and sometimes I get like 3,000, 4,000 people. Let's watch it. And it's surprising that you can, when I go to New York, I play like a 300-seat club, and I can get more people on YouTube, like or Facebook Live, watching my band. So there's a lot of cool things you can do, with all the technology now in terms of like live streaming. And there are even some places they're allowing people to even fan donations while you're doing the live stream.
Yeah.
So that gives a band a lot of different options to kind of kick on the net before they even physically get somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could do live performances from your studio and get a big following before you even hit a real club.
Yeah. It's crazy. Who would have thought?
Yeah, it actually gives you time to practice. If you think about
Yeah.
it, if you set up your cameras and you put it in the same rehearsal space and you do your show and you get like thousands of kids, following you and liking you, then you're actually practicing and you're building your rep. So it's kind of cool. What you can do.
Definitely.
All right. So, what do you think about the state of the music industry? Are you guys going to stay like indie, or are you trying to get on a label? What's your opinion?
Um, I think the scariest, most daunting part about what we're doing as an independent artist is definitely the funds. So in a sense, having a record label back you and sort of loan you that money for whatever you're working on, that would be pretty incredible. But also, so many bands are thriving without record labels that
Yeah.
I don't think it's 100% necessary either.
Well, you see bands like Wilco. Wilco went indie. Radiohead went indie. Pearl Jam went indie because they didn't even think what their record companies were offering them was a good deal.
Yeah.
So if a Pearl Jam doesn't think it's a good deal, then you got to really look at it. Okay. If a band like
Yeah.
Wilco, Yankee Hotel Foxtrot is one of my favorite albums. Is like they don't think they need to be on like a big major anymore. So that's kind of shows you what's going on. Because what a lot of artists want, you want tour support. You want somebody to be able to get you to a festival, book you.
Yes.
So sometimes what's more important is getting a booker. Getting a guy that can book the show. And whether that's some little company or whatever, it doesn't have to be a big label if they can get you to the gig. That's what you want. You want somebody to book you for a gig where you're actually going to get paid.
Definitely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like you don't want to do a 15-minute like, okay, well, I'm not going to get paid. It's like, okay, well, that's nice, but I need to get
paid. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, that's always the rub, like if they can get you on a stage. So are you guys like, if you guys could play outside the U.S. and you found that like you could do a European tour or do a tour in Asia or somewhere in the Netherlands or Norway or Australia or something, are you guys open to doing something like that? If there was an opportunity where you found out your audience was actually somewhere outside the U.S.?
Oh yeah, that would be incredible. I would love that. I've had dreams about playing places like France and
Yeah.
um
Yeah, I had an opportunity. Like I kind of missed it, but there was this. I was linked up to this Monsters Tea Party. They're on Instagram. They're like this art collective in the south of France, and I was supposed to do like a gig and go out to the south of France and do it, but then we had some kind of mix up or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I almost had an opportunity to go to south of France and play at this. This is Van Like the Ghost, and we're pushing our brand new record, Dark Ghost Volume 1, which is going to be on Diggers Factory Records. And so if you go to https://www.diggersfactory.com/vinyl/226598, you can get our brand new album on pre-order. It comes out in April. We have 196 copies out of 200 left. It's $24 plus shipping and handling. It's a 2 vinyl album. It is our statement on electronica, experimental music, and progressive trance. It is mastered for vinyl, and it's our first vinyl record. It's part of the Dark Ghost series of records. So again, it's www.diggersfactory, that's DIGGERS factory, all one word, .com/vinyl/2266598. And we'd appreciate your order, and we'll be very happy that you're checking out our music, and we'll be very supportive of you as a fan, because we'll give you some cool goodies if you sign up. So please check it out. It's www.diggersfactory.com/vinyl/226598. Thank you. Yeah, so we're I think we're getting to the end where we can wrap up. We got enough things I can string together, but I wanted to make sure that we kind of finalize.
All right. We were on
Yeah.
a roll there for a minute.
Yeah, it was working good. I thought it stabilized, and I'm like, oh, then it still glitched. But yeah, so I think what's really cool is that you guys are indie and you're writing your own music. That's another thing. Like I probably like to ask, but I forgot to ask you about your name because I'm a big fan of Victorian poetry, and I have an idea what your name means, but I'm not sure if you're thinking in the same vein. So
I think,
LittleDEATH, is that the Victorian the poet terminology that I'm thinking about, or do you think it's something else?
yeah, no, you nailed it. That's exactly it.
Yeah. So do you want to keep the mystery, or do you want your folks to know what it means?
I think they can know what it means.
Yeah, it's the term I understand it for like intercourse or sexual orgasm. That's the kind of came from
Yes.
Lord Byron and Tennyson were big like Victorian poets. They used to mask the actual explicit nature of saying that, and
Yeah.
and I'm a big fan of like William Blake and Tennyson and Wordsworth. I try to mix it into my music, and I thought it was really interesting because I've actually used the term "Little Death" in Phantom Electric Ghost songs
Nice.
for the last couple of years. I used it, and people were like, "Oh, what's that mean?" So I look it up. but it's like I'm trying. I was trying to, I was trying to be artful and try to say that without being, like explicit. And so
Yeah.
it's a good way of doing that without being, because some people are really explicit today, and that's not a problem. That's what they want to do. But I kind of like the masking if you use certain language, and I thought that was cool that you guys, your name of your band is that. That's cool.
Thank you. Yeah, there's something kind of romantic and mysterious about it for sure.
Oh yeah, it's definitely cool to see you guys like they know that, and I was very much interested in that. I was going to ask at the beginning, but we had all these glitches.
Yeah. Yeah, I came up with the name sort of because I took about 5 years of French in high school,
Oh,
or
cool.
between middle school and high school.
So you had the
I
French
can I
version.
can
Yeah,
Yeah, I can barely speak it now, but that's where I learned about that term, and I always had it in the back of my mind, thinking, man, that would be such a cool band name. And one day I finally got to put it to use.
yeah. It's cool that you actually, well, you could have used the French term, and that would be even more. But maybe that would be like with Americans, they were like, "What the hell?" It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, you probably thought about it. They said, "Well, they're not going to get it." So
they might not know how to pronounce it or how
yeah,
to type it in
the low
on
death
Google.
is cool in itself. If you look up, Lord Byron and Tennyson's use of it. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty cool. So yeah, so you guys, do you have any new singles coming out shortly on Spotify? Do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so we're going to be releasing a song in January. I don't have an exact date yet, but it's going to be a really up-tempo song that's sort of still based heavily on the storytelling and deep personal references. It's much more drums and guitar driven than the current single, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Cool. So
Um,
it's more traditional kind of classic rock or
yeah,
slow.
yeah, we've got these it's got some really garagey, cool, distorted drums in it, and the guitars kind of go back and forth between like a sort of like a modern indie, like the Wombats, to like the Police
Oh
in
yeah, the
parts.
police. Yeah,
So
the police are awesome. I like their use of reggae. You know,
yeah.
and the drumming in the police, cannot be understated.
Oh
Uh,
man, you were not wrong.
yeah, I mean yeah. I mean, I love drummers. I was listening to a bunch of Motown drummers, and I think people got to go back and listen to some of the like the Miracles and Four Tops, the Funk Brothers and the stuff that was coming out of Motown. The level of those guys were all jazz guys, and so they're introducing all these jazz techniques into pop music. And if you listen real close to some of the Motown drummers, I mean, they are phenomenal. And
Yeah.
and if you get into jazz, you listen to Coltrane, whatever. That type of drumming is kind of, you get to John Bonham and Mitch Mitchell and Keith Moon. They're taking a lot of those things. They're taking those techniques, and they bring them into rock, but they were always like in jazz and soul and R&B and blues music had a lot of these things that some people might not realize, that a lot of that comes from there. But I'm a big proponent of like cross genre, like I said.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool to hear you guys like talking about like a new single. So yeah, so we're always out here on Anchor, and if you guys get closer to other projects or you're pushing things out, let us know. We can update your podcast. Just to let you guys know, the podcast goes out to over 12 different platforms. It goes out to
Wow.
Spotify. It goes out to Apple. It goes out to Google, Radio Public, many, many others. So we're on a bunch of podcast platforms. Right now, we got 4,600 listeners
That's
that listen.
amazing.
We get about 2,000 a month. We had about 2,000 last month. We're about 900 right now, just because of this time of year. But yeah, we're pushing out. And we actually are corporate sponsored. We have sponsorships that might play on your particular episode as a segment. So we have companies that actually support us.
That's great.
So yeah, we're pretty psyched for what we're doing, and we apologize for all the glitches we had tonight. We usually don't have those, but people won't really notice them when they put it together, other than there'll be separate segments in this episode rather than one big long one.
Yeah, great. I've had a
But
great time talking with you.
no, it's great. Great to push indie rock. I love pushing indie bands. I talk to all different genres. So if you have other bands you meet that want to get interviewed, show us, tell them about us, and yeah, we'll push you out there. We're gonna send the links to you later tonight after I edit and put this together. And so yeah, we'll let you know when it's ready, and we'll be glad to talk to you again.
Awesome. That sounds great, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Great, no problem. So this was Thomas Lance from LittleDEATH, and we appreciate you guys talking to us. Have a great holiday season.
You too.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, bye.